Most investors believe that the S&P 500 is simply a list of America's biggest companies that rarely changes. But the reality is very different. The index is constantly rewriting itself. Companies rise, companies fall, and every year new leaders replace the old ones. Over the decades, entire industries have disappeared from the index while new ones have taken their place. Behind the scenes, the structured system continuously updates the index through market cap weighting, strict eligibility rules, and ongoing committee decisions. The result is not a static portfolio of the old giants. It is a living index designed to track the most powerful companies driving the modern American economy. Chapter 1. The Misconception. Why people think that the S&P 500 is static. Now, for many investors, the S&P 500 feels like a permanent club of America's largest companies. The index has existed for decades, and because it is often quoted as the main barometer of the United States stock market, it creates the impression that the same companies must have been sitting inside for a very long time. Now, this perception leads to a common doubt. If the index contains companies that entered decades ago, does that mean investors are simply buying yesterday's winners instead of tomorrow's leaders? Now, the structure of the index shows that this assumption is inaccurate. The S&P 500 was created with a very specific objective. Its goal is to represent the large cap segment of the US equity market. In practical terms, the index tracks approximately 500 leading companies that together represent roughly 80% of the total US market capitalization. Maintaining this representation is not possible with a static list. The economy evolves continuously. New industries emerge, technological shifts reshape markets, and once dominant companies can lose relevance over time. Because of this, the consumption of the index must evolve alongside the economy it represents. Historical data clearly reflects this change. Research tracking the lifespan of companies in the S&P 500 shows average tenure of a company in the index declined from around 33 years in the 1960s to roughly 24 years in the recent years, with projections suggesting that the average tenure could fall to around 12 years by 2027. Now, these numbers reveal an important reality. The S&P 500 is not a fixed list of legacy companies. It is a constantly evolving snapshot of corporate leadership in the United States. Companies enter when they grow large enough, and they leave when they no longer represent the large cap segment of the market. Over time, the continuous turnover ensures that the index reflects the changing structure of the economy rather than preserving a historical lineup of past champions. Chapter 2. The automatic engine, how market cap weighting rewards winners. The first and foremost powerful self-cleaning mechanism inside the S&P 500 is something most investors rarely notice. It is the way the index is weighted. The S&P 500 is a float-adjusted market capitalization weighted index. This means that the influence of each economy in the index is determined by its market value rather than by giving every company an equal share. In simple terms, the larger the company becomes, the larger its weight in the index. Now, this creates an automatic adjustment mechanism that operates every single trading day. When a company grows rapidly, its market capitalization increases. As a result, its weight in the index automatically rises. When a company struggles and its market value declines, its weight in the index gradually shrinks. No committee decision is required for this to happen. The system simply reflects the market's collective judgment. Over time, this structure naturally shifts the index towards companies that are creating the most value in the market. The strongest businesses gradually become more dominant within the index, while weaker companies slowly lose influence. This dynamic process is one of the key reasons that the index has consistently captured the growth of emerging industries. As new sectors gain economic importance, the companies leading those sectors grow larger in market value. As their size expands, their weight within the S&P 500 automatically increases. In other words, the index constantly reallocates itself toward the most successful companies in the market. Even before any company is added or removed from the index, the market cap weighting system already acts as a powerful self-correcting mechanism, ensuring that the index continuously reflects the current leadership of the US corporate landscape. Chapter 3. The rule book, the strict filters for companies entering the index. Now, while the market cap weighting determines the influence of the companies inside the index, entry into the S&P 500 itself is governed by a strict set of eligible rules. These rules exist to ensure that the index represents companies that are not only large, but also investable, financially stable, and widely traded in the public markets. One of the most important requirements is size. Companies considered for the index must meet a minimum market capitalization threshold. In recent methodology guidelines, the approximate minimum size requirement has been around $22.7 billion in total market value, but the size alone is not enough. The index also requires companies to demonstrate consistent profitability. To be eligible, a company must report positive GAAP earnings in the most recent quarter and across the previous 4 quarters combined. This rule prevents the index from being dominated by speculative or unproven companies that may be growing quickly but are not yet financially sustainable. Liquidity is another major filter. Companies must show strong trading activity in the market, typically requiring a high ratio of annual trading value relative to the company's public float along with consistent trading volume. Additionally, companies must meet requirements related to the public share float, listing on eligible US exchanges, and compliance with US reporting standards. Together, these filters do ensure that companies entering the S&P 500 are large, widely owned, and actively traded by institutional investors. The strict screening process is one reason why inclusion in the S&P 500 is widely seen as a major milestone for companies. It signals that a business has reached a scale, profitability, and market presence that qualifies it as part of the core leadership of the US equity market. Chapter 4, the replacement engine. How the index adds new leaders and removes the old ones is a critical factor. The final layer of the self-cleaning system behind the S&P 500 is the process through which companies are actually added to or removed from the index. This responsibility lies with a committee at S&P Dow Jones Indices that continuously monitors the composition of the index and the broader market. The committee reviews a wide range of developments that can affect whether a company should remain part of the index. Now, these include major corporate actions such as mergers and acquisitions, bankruptcies, spin-offs, or situations where a company's market capitalization declines significantly relative to the rest of the large cap universe. Unlike many indices that only rebalance on the fixed annual schedules, the S&P 500 makes changes whenever necessary. While there are quarterly reviews, many additions and deletions occur outside the scheduled updates when market conditions require it. Historical examples clearly illustrate how this process keeps the index aligned with economic change. When the energy trading giant Enron collapsed during the early 2000s accounting scandal, it was removed from the index and replaced by the semiconductor company called Nvidia, which later became one of the most influential technology firms in the world. Similarly, the decline of traditional industries has often coincided with the rise of new technology leaders. Companies such as Netflix entered the index as digital media platforms replaced older entertainment models, while the electric vehicle manufacturers Tesla joined the index after reaching the scale and profitability required for that inclusion. Now, these replacements are not designed to predict future winners. Instead, they ensure that the S&P 500 always reflects the companies that currently represent the largest and most economically significant section of the US market. What makes the S&P 500 powerful is not simply the companies inside it, it is a system that constantly keeps the index relevant. Market cap weighting automatically increases exposure to companies that are growing. Strict eligibility rules ensure that only large, profitable, liquid companies enter the index. And continuous monitoring by S&P Dow Jones Indices allows companies to be replaced whenever the structure of the market changes. Together, these companies allow the index to evolve with the economy itself. Over the time, S&P 500 does not just track the market, it continuously updates itself to reflect the most influential companies driving American businesses. For investors looking to access the growth of global markets, S&P 500 offers exposure to a constantly evolving set of companies. Instead of trying to predict the next winning stock, the index gradually incorporates new leaders over time, allowing investors to participate in the long-term growth of the world's largest economy. If you like this one, you make sure to subscribe to the Appreciate YouTube channel for more such insightful videos. Thank you so much.
Investment in securities market are subject to market risks. Read all the related documents carefully before investing.